know, after suffering from postnatal depression, I spent a long time focusing on my mental health, trying to get that strong and fighting fit again. But in the meantime, I neglected my physical health. So it's finally time to get that back on track too. And here's how I'm going to do it. Let's go. Hi guys, it's Laura and I help you live a simpler, happier, more spacious life. And every year in August I do a 1 month challenge, and the challenge changes every year. So this year I am focusing on getting physically healthier, or even just healthy, because right now it's not good, but I will be focusing on my diet in terms of like what I'm consuming and just increasing my movement. Kind of a body positivity challenge, or a, you know, love your body challenge. I am going to have a free template / checklist available too. I will talk about that a little bit more at the end of the video when I come back to how I'm going to be tracking all of this stuff. Now, between me deciding on this challenge and actually recording this video, things have changed ever so slightly. Not an upset to my plans, but they will definitely need to be tweaked. I'll come back to that a little bit later. But I do want to say at this point that this is not about changing my shape or changing who I am. This is about embracing my body and learning to love it as it is, and just learning to look after it a little bit better. And in the spirit of embracing my body, the first thing that I'm going to do as part of this prep work is to remove clothes from my closet that do not currently fit or flatter me. I'm going to have a whole separate video on that process because I want to dive deeper into the reasons why I'm doing that, and it will just take too long here. But as part of any challenge, you always want to know where you're starting from, or you always want to do some kind of prep work. You know, as part of embarking on any journey, you really want to remove as many kind of obstacles or hindrances. They're probably not the right words, but you really just want to set yourself up for success as much as possible. And it is really important to me as I am starting out on this journey that, as I said, that I accept and embrace my body, and that I dress it in a way that makes me feel confident and comfortable. And listen, I'm not going to do that with clothes that just don't currently fit me. I've had a baby, you know, I've moved, I've grown up, all of these things. My body shape has just changed over time. And that is perfectly normal. That is perfectly natural. Like I said, I want to only have clothes that represent that and that make me feel great. That is the mindset that I want to go into this challenge with. It is a positive one. I am not going into this to punish my body in any way or to make me feel bad. Absolutely not. It's quite the opposite. I want to love my body and take care of it the best that I can. I want to do and wear what is best for me. So that is how I am setting the tone. I am removing those clothes from my closet. I'm not getting rid of them completely. Maybe my shape will change, but for now I'm getting them out of regular rotation. So the clothes that are in my closet are the clothes that currently fit me and make me feel great. The next two big steps then are diet and exercise. Now, when I say diet, I do not mean going on a diet. I do not mean, you know, eliminating foods from my diet or anything like that. I'm just talking about the food and drink that I consume. And by exercise, I do not mean, you know, gym sessions or workout classes or anything. Those things are great. Have done them before, have loved them, but right now they're just not going to fit into my life. So let's break down how I'm going to be overhauling those two areas of my life, and I will come back to how I'm going to be tracking them and monitoring them and keeping on top of them. Now, when I use the word overhaul, I think it's really important to remember that the reality of the situation is you're not going to become a totally new person overnight. You are not going to wake up tomorrow morning. I am not going to wake up tomorrow morning and be this ultra productive, super disciplined person. I'm just not going to be a completely new person. And that's why this part of the process is so important, this prep work, because it's about preparing yourself, you know, easing yourself into it, removing as many obstacles as you can, and just making the process that little bit more efficient. It's about making changes that work with the person that you are, you know, making little tweaks and changes. Yes, challenging yourself a bit, but not making sweeping changes that require that you like totally turn your life upside down overnight. it's almost impossible to stick to sweeping changes. So instead, make those little transitions, those little tweaks. Again, this is why prep is so important. It just gets you ready for what's ahead. So my first order of business here was writing down a list of all of the foods that I currently eat, kind of typical meals or snacks that I would have on a regular day. This is about knowing where you're starting from. It gives me a better idea of what my kind of day-to-day life is, so that, as I said, I'm not trying to make sweeping changes. I'm not trying to drastically change my diet. I'm not trying to cut anything out completely. I'm just making those little tweaks and changes that are going to improve my diet. Adding in a little bit more of the healthy stuff and reducing the unhealthy stuff. I'm just going to take that framework that I currently have, the current meals and snacks that I eat, and tweak it so that I'm getting a little bit more of the healthier stuff. There's more of the good stuff in there. Also, what I'm doing is listing out some of the kind of healthy-ish types of foods that I do like, but I don't, for some reason, currently eat. The reason for that is so that I can make a more concerted effort to purchase those things and to incorporate those things into my diet. Again, it's all about working with what I currently have and just making some small changes along the way, adding some things in here, taking some things out there. Not completely starting from scratch, but working with the kind of template, the framework that I currently have, and making that a little bit better. Now, the plan at this point was to create a rough meal plan for myself, again kind of keeping in mind the framework that I already have and just making those changes so that my diet is a little bit more balanced. But Ireland just lifted travel restrictions, so I have booked a flight and I am actually going to be at home for half of the month. So here's what I'm going to do. Instead of making out a meal plan for the entire month and having a few things prepped in advance, I am going to let my mother have free reign over what I have for dinners. Lads, you don't argue with an Irish mammy. Whatever she's cooking, that's what you're eating. But for smaller meals, for my breakfast and my lunch and snacks that I will inevitably have throughout the day, those I'm going to try and have a little bit more control over. So I'm going to plan for those meals. I was hoping to kind of have that plan made in advance, like I said, for the entire month when I thought I was going to be here, but I'm going to wait until I'm home and I kind of see what's available. That is when I will make out my rough plan. Again, it's not going to be like a super strict thing or anything, but just a general idea of what I could have for each meal, so that when I do sit down or when I do feel hungry, I will have a list of things that are reasonably healthy, also with some unhealthy things in there, everything in moderation, but I will have some form of a list or kind of template or plan to work from. I'm also committing to drinking 2 liters of water a day. I'm not too bad with this. I generally would drink about a liter, maybe a little bit more on an average day, but I really want to get better at this. In tandem with that, and kind of to round out my diet, I guess, I am also committing to taking my vitamins on a daily basis. I do have some, but I kind of take them occasionally when I think of them. So I'm actually going to set a recurring reminder on my phone so that every day it will beep and remind me to take my vitamins if I haven't already. So water and vitamins to round out the kind of diet or consumables part of this challenge. Now let's move on to the exercise or movement part. Now listen, I live a very sedentary, unfortunately, lifestyle. I work a lot at my laptop, so I'm sitting down for a lot of the day, and that is not great. But like I said at the outset of this video, there is no point trying to assume that I will wake up tomorrow and be this like super motivated gym bunny. Plus I'm going to be home, and I just know that realistically I'm not going to stick to a very strict workout routine. I want to challenge myself, yes, but not just set myself up for a huge failure. Now again, I want to figure out kind of where I'm at right now. If you are taking on a challenge, you need to know where you're starting from, because otherwise you're not going to know if you're making progress. So the way that I did this was I looked at my fitness tracker on my phone. It's actually this watch. It connects to an app on my phone and it tells me how many steps I take a day. So I looked at my average for the past month and 6 months, and they were both the same. They're both about 4,500 steps a day. That's not great, but it is what it is. It will help me set a realistic goal. So if I know that I'm currently doing 4,500 steps, there's no point in saying, oh, I'm going to be doing 10,000 steps every single day. probably not realistic. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm committing to 10,000 steps at least 4 days a week, and then at least 5,000 steps 3 days a week. The reality is I'm going to be home. I'm going to be seeing friends and family. There's going to be a lot of sitting down and chatting and catching up. So I don't want to commit to those 10,000 every single day. So for the 3 days, like I said, it will be a little bit of a stretch. If I normally get 4,500, I'm going to stretch myself to the 5,000. And then for the other days, I'm just going to make it much more of a conscious effort to get up and move, going for walks, just going out and about and getting some form of movement in. If I decide that I want to do some other form of activity, that's great, but my commitment is to these steps. Because again, the reality is that those 4,500 steps that I take every day on an average day, that's it. For my movement, I don't have any sort of exercise routine. I used to, back in Ireland, I used to go to the gym regularly, and here I just haven't been. So again, I'm not going to change into a completely different person overnight. So for this month, for the month of August, I just want to challenge myself to move a little bit more, to be more conscious of the fact that I need to move my body. If I can manage more than those 5,000 for the 3 days and 10,000 for the 4 days, that's great, wonderful, but those are my baselines, those are the minimums. And by kind of splitting it in that way, I'm giving myself that little bit of leeway for those moments when, like I said, I will be visiting friends and family and just having a slightly more relaxed, chill day. Still a little bit of a challenge, like I said, but not totally out there. Still should be realistic for me. And then before I move on to the tracking and give you the template and everything, this last one is something that I definitely need to improve on, and that is wearing sunscreen a lot more often. Right now I do occasionally wear it, but really only when I know I'm going to be outside for a prolonged period, like if I'm going for a long walk, if I am going to the park or the playground with my daughter, things like that. I don't wear it if I'm just kind of lounging around the back garden or if I'm bringing the dog for a walk. Like those are generally shorter walks, so I need to get better at wearing it in those types of situations. I'm trying to take a slightly holistic approach in the sense that I'm focusing on not just what I'm putting into my body, but also what I'm putting on my body and how I am using and moving my body. Again, making those improvements, making those changes that are challenging but still realistic. So how am I going to be tracking all of this? Because like I said, there is really no point in taking on a challenge if you don't know if you're making progress. You need to know kind of where you're starting from and where you want to get to in order to see that you are moving towards that direction. So here's what's going to happen. Each day in my journal, I am going to note down what I ate that day, if I took my vitamins, how much water I drank, and how many steps I took. I have created a little chart that I can just copy and paste into each day of my journal and just fill it out as I need to. I am also going to make this available on my Instagram, so make sure that you're following me over there, and it will be in my templates highlight bubble. If you want, you can screenshot that and use it for yourself. I've also left a section for notes, and this is to kind of jot down anything that occurs to me that might be kind of important to the challenge. For example, if it was a heavy travel day, like there will be a day when I'm just basically on a plane the entire day, or if I felt kind of ill that day or extra lethargic or whatever. Anything I think may have an impact on the challenge or maybe as a result of the challenge. Maybe, for example, I notice after a few days of eating a little bit better that I am then sleeping better, for instance. By doing that, I'm hoping to notice any kind of patterns or changes or improvements that are happening or maybe that need to be made. I think that's a really important element of any challenge or goal, you know, realizing that along the way you may need to change tack. If you've got a goal and you stick to it rigidly, even though, you know, halfway through you realize it's not quite working out, it's really important to allow yourself some flexibility. I'm hoping by jotting things down, noting things, just being a little bit more intentional, I will know when it's time to change, if I do need to change. Maybe something is a little bit more challenging than I thought and I need to lower the bar just a tiny bit, or maybe I'm finding something very easy, so I need to make it a little bit more challenging. But this kind of chart or template is what is going to keep me accountable, keep me on track, and noticing those changes, knowing when I need to pick up the pace and maybe challenge myself a little bit more, and where I need to go a little bit easier on myself, or maybe just make some changes to make it fit into my lifestyle a little bit better. It's not about, making excuses or slacking off or anything. It's just about working with my needs and my wants and my realities. Hopefully everything will go swimmingly, but you just never know. You always have to allow for that little bit of wiggle room. I think all of those things taken together will help to make significant strides towards better physical health for me. And like I said, it's taking into account the fact that I will be traveling, that I will be spending time with family and friends. I want it to be challenging, but not grueling. And I invite you to join in on the challenge this year. Maybe you've done it in previous years, maybe this is your first year. Let me know in the comments. What are you taking on? It doesn't have to be this specific challenge. You can take on whatever you feel is a priority for you right now, something that you want to focus on and improve over the coming month. Follow me on Instagram. That's where I'll be sharing all of my updates and my progress. And I want to see your progress and your updates. I will cheer you on if you cheer me on. And videos around here are going to be pretty much non-existent for the next few weeks. Until the next time, whenever that is. Gur raibh míle maith agaibh. Agus feici mé sibh sigalua. Slán!